The first incident was in Ching City. An extraordinary child was born who radiated light. After that, reports of people with superpowers popped up across the globe. No one knew what was causing these quirks.
My Hero Academia has a lot of criticism thrown at it, and like a bunch of other popular things, a lot of that criticism is unfounded. One of these frequent criticisms is about MHA's world building, stating that just because MHA takes place in Japan, there is no world building. This is a misconception in two parts. One, the term world building is often used incorrectly in online discourse, covering only a fraction of it, and two, MHA is chock full of world building, and pretty good world building at that, extrapolating on a unique power system to build a foundation for a distinct setting and world. Let's get into the first point to begin. If you follow the online discourse exclusively, you might think that world building is just making a map and putting names to places on the map, or exploring more than just Japan in MHA's case. With this definition, you are partially correct. Names on a map are most certainly a part of world building, but world building has so much more to it than just that. It's the act of creating a coherent fictional world. It is a set of rules for the author to lay out so that said author, readers, or even inhabitants of that fictional world have a consistent method to operate from. This includes things like the world's history, social customs, and relevant laws. There are three staples of world building that I've learned from world-building theorists that I personally subscribe to, and those are 1. Completeness. Does the created fictional world create an illusion of a lived-in society with its lore and history? 2. Consistency. Is the created fictional world logically consistent? Do certain factors of the world lead from or to others? And 3. Inventiveness. Does the created fictional world deviate from the real world, and if so, to what extent? I won't really get into this one too much because I think it's fairly obvious in this case. To establish completeness, we have to establish if the fictional world creates an illusion of a lived-in society with lore and history. If you paid attention while watching or reading My Hero Academia, this should be relatively self-explanatory. We've seen the effects of quirk society being lived in for over 100 years. Starting with the very beginning of All for One's rule, we saw how underground syndicates like his and presumably many others ruled from the shadows, halted technological progress, and caused a complete upheaval of society. We saw resistance groups form, and the likes of the second and third users of One for All, and the rise of powerhouses like All Might. This history of the series is the catalyst for many of the hero systems we are familiar with today. Something else that helps quirk society's lived-in feeling is MHA's frequent use of civilian reaction. Whether it be Chapter 1 with everyone nonchalantly talking about this villain attack, or even in the 300s showing people's reactions to things like Dobby, Endeavor's past, and Gigantomachia's rampage. We feel the ripples of each new incident as it affects the citizens, whether it be through the people themselves or what the media has to say about it. And it's honestly hard to continue on with completeness without also getting into the lived-in feeling that comes from the completeness of My Hero Academia's world building leads into the consistent logical growth that we see. It leads into official hero systems and hero branches of government coming out of the darkness. The Hero Public Safety Commission being the branch of government that handles heroes. From the HPSC spawns hero schools, hero or quirk regulation, the current role of the police force in the story, pro-hero rankings, and hero work as a proper job, and that isn't even close to all that MHA has to offer. This consistency further leads to things like quirk discrimination in the form of Spinner and the quirk KKK, social discrimination in the form of Shinso, whose quirk was thought to be villainous in nature, the lack of quirk counseling and taboo of Toga's quirk leading to her current state, the pro-hero system leading to people like Stain, radicalized into believing most heroes are frauds doing it for pay. One of my favorite characters in MHA, Endeavor, is dripping with consequences of a power-based society, introducing us to concepts such as arranged quirk marriages. The Meta Liberation Army, and by extension Redestro, show us a glimpse into the developing world of quirk society. We're shown how people reacted to the regulation of quirks, even as going as far as to form militia groups until their defeat in Destro's incarceration. Mirroring many real-life extremists, he wrote an autobiography that held its grip on society for many generations, forming an army of over 100,000 strong in modern-day Japan, and gaining popularity after people like Stain and the fall of All Might. You see, completeness and consistency in world building are like a symbiotic relationship. That means that the completeness of a world breeds the consistent method used to further develop the world, and at the same time, the consistency of the world feeds into the lived-in, complete feeling of the world. The prime example would be Tomura Shigaraki, the story of somebody who was let down by the apathetic hero society as complacency was bred by the ever-expanding amount of heroes in the reign of All Might. Abused by his father due to his disdain for heroes after Nana Shimura left to protect him, abandoned by the population at large due to the cultural norms that the society has created, and picked up by only one man. Shigaraki is the culmination of MHA's lived-in history and logical consistency in the form of his treatment by hero society. Without quirks as a power system, none of the dominoes would have fallen into place for Shigaraki to be the story's main antagonist. To summarize, quirks are the primary world-building tool in MHA, and they have certainly not been plopped in without any further development, which is what would have happened if MHA had lackluster world building. The consequences of quirks run deep and are ever present throughout every aspect of hero society. MHA does rarely dip into things outside of Japan, but that isn't the only thing that matters for world building. If you want a bit more outside of Japan content, you can pick up the Vigilante spin-off manga. I hope this helps somebody learn that not all criticisms you read on Twitter make sense.